Welcome, everyone. So glad to be together this morning or afternoon, depending on which part of the world you're dialing in from. We are starting our part 2 of our workshop series with Linda Scotson, founder of the Linda Scotson Technique, to which we were introduced this weekend. And hopefully we've all been practicing with our fluffy rolled up towels. And before we go into the flow of today, I wanted to mention two things. One is that at any point, you can add your questions. If you've been practicing and have had questions come up, please go ahead and add them at any point to the chat. And like last time, we'll have specific intervals where Linda will field those questions. The other thing I wanted to mention was that Linda is iceberg vast in her story, her wisdom, her experience, her expertise. We got tip of the iceberg last time, and there's a lightness with which she presents this information and her experience and her expertise, and it almost belies like this steely courage and determination and dedication that she has brought to this journey over decades. And I was thinking about her book, one of her first books. It was called Doran, Child of Courage, and it tells the story of the evolution of this technique, but also the personal story of her journey with Doran and Lily, her two children, whom we got a glimpse of last time. And I wanted to just, read a couple of excerpts from here to give you a glimpse of, kind of a glimpse of what's beneath the surface of this story. And I want you to think about, Linda as a young mother with a child who's been diagnosed, with this acute condition and with very little recourse within the medical system at the time. And here is one of the things she says about Doran. Doran always gave me the impression I was with someone very strong. I could never be described as being alone with a baby when I was, in fact, in the company of a forceful and fascinating friend. And at some point in Doran's, this is when he's still a child, she says, I could see that Doran wasn't growing, that he had no control over his head, that his hands were still fists, and that there were no messages to link the different parts of his body except the sudden reflex in his back. Neurologically, Doran was a mess, and psychologically, he was beginning to realize it. And so as a mother, she's watching her child, and she has this instinct, this intuition that water, hydrotherapy could be some kind of a key. She says, I saw that water would make it easier for Doran to move his limbs and would stimulate his skin, increasing sensation all over his body. The result would be like returning to the amniotic fluid of the womb and would perhaps produce the rebirth of another part of his brain. And she starts to take him to the swimming pool, which is not close by. She starts twice a day taking her children to the pool and seeing what that's doing in terms of animating Doran. And in addition to the baths, she says he liked the showers. She would stand him up in the warm water, gently pressing his palms open and shut so that his palms received stimulation. And it occurred to me that no one had actually told me why Doran was stiff. They told me he had become stiff because his brain was injured, and they confirmed the fact that he was stiff, except of course in his neck, which wasn't stiff enough to support his head. But why? What was happening? Nobody appeared to know. And what was worse, nobody seemed curious. Once a child was brain injured, his symptoms were documented to establish the degree of injury. The documentation could go on endlessly, but that was all. I couldn't see that the doctors knew any more than the parents. One morning, as we were later leaving the pool, a school had come in and the children were passing through the changing rooms. At first, I thought they were blind. Many of them seemed to be groping rather than walking. Their mouths were open, their faces, whether grinning or frowning, communicated nothing. They moved as if they lived in a precarious, insubstantial, threatening world through which they were being unwillingly dragged by their teachers. They were the brain-injured children of today, or rather a sample of the lucky ones who could walk. They had arrived to remind me of something. As I dried Doran, I studied the children. Fear of them slowly left me. I wanted to understand. looking at them, it seemed impossible that these were Doran's brothers, but it was true. Whatever I did for Doran, I would do for them. Later, her doctor tells her, I hear you're going swimming, but isn't twice a day slightly excessive? And Linda responds, I think brain injury is a little excessive. And she follows that thread, and what she did, basically, what she tuned into was that to reorganize the healthy part of the brain, to take over the functions of the part lost through injury, you could do that by patterning the brain with the right information, the kind of information that a normal child or a healthy child would collect naturally in its development. So the key was the frequency, intensity, and duration of stimulation. The stimulation in Doran's case consisted of multiple people simultaneously moving Doran's limbs for him in deliberate patterns up to 15 times a day for months and years on end. There was also at one period respiratory exercises that involved masking him 60 times a day. That works out to one masking for 1 minute every 8 minutes of his waking life. Can you imagine, like in those years, Linda describes it as like living her life in 8-minute intervals that were determined by an egg timer. And there's so much more. This is, again, like just tip of the iceberg. But when Linda was asked, did I ever believe did you ever believe you would fail? And her honest answer was no, because the only failure I understood was indifference. The only failure I understood was indifference. And so that, again, just like reading the book, Doran, Child of Courage, it just gives you this deep experience of kind of getting to walk side by side with Linda through those years of uncertainty, but also exploration. And the aliveness of that exploration is what we are getting the benefit of today, Linda. So I cannot thank you enough for the culmination of this work and this continuing journey that you are on. It is truly, truly a gift. So thank you again for being here with us. And Trishna, I will hand over to you now to give us an introduction to the flow of today, and onward we will go.
Thank you, Puddy. And welcome everyone to our second of workshops in this series. As you know from what Pubby described, Linda is a woman of courage. She's someone who really wears her heart on her sleeve, and her life is a labor of love. And we're really grateful, Linda, that you're here to share this labor of love with the world in the way that you do. I thought it'd be helpful by starting with just a quick overview of what we'll be doing today in the second workshop, and then we'll dive into a little bit of a review. So we'll start with a review from workshop 1, a very quick run through of what we did just to refresh our memories, and then go straight into practice mode together on the 2 exercises we learned in the first workshop. As Pubby mentioned, just keep your questions coming as they pop up in your mind throughout the workshop, and we'll be collating them and asking them kind of in batches as we go. After we do our review and practice together, we'll go into learning 3 new exercises today, and that will complete our kind of 5 exercise course of things that you can do on yourself. Each exercise will be demonstrated by our lovely fishbowl participants, David and Stephanie, who have offered to be on screen and join Linda in this teaching session. And after each exercise, there'll be a pause for questions, because I think it's really important to address the questions pertaining to each exercise as we go along. So please keep the questions coming through the chat. And David and Stephanie will also do their best to channel your questions as they engage with Linda. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with, again, a few practice tips and reminders and helpful hints. And Linda's going to share a little bit from her journey. And then we'd love to invite everybody who is in the workshop to come on screen for that final bit of the workshop to share a little bit. So kind of stay tuned, and it'd be great to see your faces and for Linda to hear from you at the end of the workshop. And so with that, we go into our review from our workshop on Sunday.
Okay. Is it
So
over to me now?
no, so I'm going to do a quick review, Linda, and then I'll hand over to you to run the demonstration. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll do a quick recap. What is LST? What is this technique actually? And as you've heard from Linda, it's at the application of specific light pressures that we're applying to the diaphragm in different locations around the rib cage. It's not an exercise. It's just a gentle pressure that we're applying. The purpose of applying this pressure is actually to imitate the pressures that normally would be there actually when we breathe. And that pressure that the breath actually places on the diaphragm increases the blood flow. So when we're doing an optimal breath, a proper diaphragmatic breath, this actually happens anyways. But in most cases, most of us are not breathing from that place. And so when we're doing these exercises, we're actually stimulating the movement of the blood flow that would be happening when we breathe that way. And that actually improves the diaphragm's functional abilities. So LST directly strengthens the diaphragm, and it actually in turn enables the whole body to receive more oxygen, as this muscle has a huge responsibility in helping the kind of oxygen supply move around in our body. This is a question that had come up in the first workshop. LST is suitable for basically anybody from birth right up until you're old. It's safe for anybody at any age with any existing health conditions. We had this question come up as well. It's perfectly safe for pregnant women. And actually, Linda mentioned it's a huge benefit to the baby as well, to do it even before you conceive and during pregnancy. So what are the benefits? Why would people do this? I think one of the first things to look at is that it positively impacts the diaphragm and the breathing quality in our body. So this diaphragm muscle, it's something, Linda and I were just talking about earlier today. It's this forgotten muscle that we're not even taught much about through all of our education. When we study biology, you study all this, we don't learn much about how integrated this muscle is in our health. But it plays complex respiratory roles, circulatory roles, postural roles, and a lot of other functions are affected by its health. So improving breathing quality will increase the body's capacity to help this oxygen move around to where it needs to go. And the increased oxygen actually helps all of our systems to work together more effectively. Now, this is something that isn't completely obvious, but breathing quality has a complete and direct impact on our health. A lot of times we think it affects certain things, but actually the truth is it affects everything, because it's what's driving oxygen delivery, both to the brain and to our entire bodies. I'm going to let you have a look at the number of different things on this slide that breathing impacts. And I'm guessing everybody will find something in this list that is somehow adversely playing up in their body. So it really has quite a wide-ranging impact. I was actually just telling Linda this morning, I had a pinched nerve in my neck a couple of days ago, and I woke up the last few hours of sleep. I couldn't sleep. I was tossing, turning. And then I finally couldn't sleep. And the only comfortable position was just lying on my back. And while I was lying there, I did these breaths that Linda has taught me. And I just started doing them just kind of spontaneously. And actually within 5 minutes of doing this, my pinched nerve pain completely had settled. And I couldn't immediately make sense of it, but I was telling her, my gosh, when you live through it, you see how much is really affected by our breathing quality. And why is LST different? A lot of people talk about, well, you can do pranayama and you can do this and you can do that. There's so many things that you can do, singing and things that help the diaphragm. Well, LST is different because it actually directly impacts the diaphragm. It's not using energy from anywhere else in our body. It's literally focusing all of that energy on improving the strength of the diaphragm. The other big thing to note is that anybody can do it. If somebody's ill, somebody can be doing LST on them, or they can likely even do it on themselves. If somebody can't be physically active, this is something that they can do to help support their healing process if they've got a broken foot or whatever it might be. So it's something that's very universally applicable and doesn't require a certain physique or a certain level of activity that you're capable of doing. So just a quick refresher on the towel folds. I think everyone gets a little caught up in this because there's a lot of little things about the technique that are quite important. So the first fold is where you're going to fold it in half, kind of the short way, and then you're going to be gently rolling your towel up, making sure there's kind of the air pockets in the side, so that it's not too tightly folded, and you can see the cloth in the picture. This is relevant for both the central diaphragm exercise and for our side ribs exercises, which we'll learn today. And then we have the long fold where you kind of turn it on its long side and you're doing just kind of these big fat folds, and they end up coming out much flatter and less fluffy than when we're rolling the towel. And this fold is relevant for both of the double rib exercises in the front, which we'll be doing. So just a quick refresher again on what are the steps, and these steps are universal to all 5 exercises. And as you'll see today, as you learn all 5 exercises, the motion of all 5 exercises is identical. The only difference ever will be your towel fold, the positioning of the towel in terms of where you're putting it, and the positioning of your hands. Apart from that, the rest is identical in terms of the actual movement. So step number 1, choose any relaxed position for LST. It can be lying down, it can be sitting up, it can be slightly reclined, whatever is comfortable for you. And you place your hand or your hands, depending on if you're using 1 or 2 hands, on the towel. And you begin by applying the gentle descending pressure. And again, it's important to kind of apply the pressure evenly with your hand, not kind of applying more pressure in any part of your hand, and not using the wrist or other parts of our hand. The movement comes from these muscles in the upper part of our shoulder, and that enables us to make a really nice and smooth and even movement as we go down. I think it's important to note we're applying pressure and not pressing, I guess, because I remember early on I used to think of it as, oh, you're getting harder and harder and harder. And Linda would correct me and say, no, we're actually just keeping the same pressure. We're just counting longer, and the pressure is continuing to go down further. So we're counting down to 6, and it's roughly about 8 seconds if you time Linda's beautiful musical count. And then we come back up for the same exact count of 6. And when we come back up, this is super important in any position, any of the 5 positions, is to completely remove, even if you're just ever so slightly hovering above the towel, your hand. 0 pressure is where our body takes an internal snapshot, and we commit some of what we've just done to some memory in our body. And that memory then obviously we build on the more we do the exercise. There are 3 pauses at the top, and then you repeat the same steps above once again. Some quick tips again on technique. Any position is great. And if you're lying down, if you take like a long towel and just place it behind the neck, it provides some comfort as you're lying down. The movement, once again, it's a continuous flowing movement. There's a tendency to want to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and to do the same coming back up, but really it's just moving along in a fluid motion without any stops along the way. This beautiful analogy of imagining pushing a leaf under the water in a very controlled way so it doesn't just kind of shove under the water, and then making sure it doesn't pop right back up as you're coming back up, and having that resistance almost as you're coming back up. It's important, again, to be mindful that the movement is coming from here, and you'll know when it's coming from here because you'll feel this pain after, maybe half an hour of working on yourself. You'll start to feel this kind of muscle ache here, and it's just this dull kind of ache. And that's just your muscle telling you it's working, really, more than anything else. It's nothing to worry about. And the more you do it, the stronger that muscle gets, just like anything else. And, in a few months, you won't even be feeling anything in your muscles. But it is a movement that generates from this muscle at the top of the arm. This is also very important. A lot of times there's so many things to think about when we're doing this technique that we can hold tension in our hand itself that's doing the exercise. But holding muscle in that hand actually does a disservice to our technique, because it's going to make the movement quite rough and not have the gentle caress-like sensation that we should be getting. So it's really important to keep those fingers quite loose, keep the hand quite floppy, and really, again, we're generating movement from the shoulder, so the hand is not really doing much work apart from just kind of guiding the towel. And this is another important thing. As you learn 5 exercises, you'll see the towel can start to become a bit flat at times as as you press on it more and do the exercise more. So every now and again, when you notice that, you'll notice the sensation changes. Just unfold and refold the towel with those air pockets inside of it to kind of maintain that springiness. And now we're going to begin our practice of the 2 exercises we learned on the first workshop. I'm just going to do a quick reminder of the positions and hand over to Linda to guide us through them. So depending on if you're using your left hand or your right hand, these are the diagrams that explain which hand is on top and where the towel is. So basically the direction of the towel always points away from the top hand. So if you're working, of the top hand. So if you're working with your right hand, that you'll hold your towel with the left hand and it'll be pointing downwards on that side as well. And you'll be using the right hand to actually guide the movement. A quick recap of the steps of this exercise. So we're kind of placing the full base, the kind of this part of our 4 fingers on the towel or the palm, depending on what's comfortable for you. And you place them kind of on the end of the towel. So when you're positioning it here, it's kind of the center should be where the top end of the towel is. And if you're using 2 hands, it's important to remember to have the top hand control the movement, not the bottom hand. The bottom hand basically serves as a guide for kind of keeping the towel in place. And then the top hand is actually where we're generating the movement from in our shoulder. We're applying that pressure into that triangular area you can see here in the center of the diaphragm, below the sternum and between our ribs. And you'll feel, if you follow your sternum down, you kind of get to a point a couple of inches below where it ends, where there's this kind of soft squishy bit. And that's where we're focusing on for this exercise. And again, Linda will walk us through the count. It's a count of 6 down, count of 6 up, and a pause. So over to you, Linda.
Thank you very much, most warmly. Right, so everybody has their fluffy towel.
We could bring Stephanie and David in as well, Preeta.
That would be nice. So wait for a moment. One little additional thing about the towel is be careful when you wash it, because it can end up very stubbly. Although it looks like the same towel, it won't act like the same towel. So don't wash them unless you really have to. And if none of the water softeners work and you still end up with a stubbly towel, better to replace it with another one than stress over the stubble. Some kind person once washed all our center towels and they were like cardboard, so we had to replace them all. But it's better to, at our place, to have a new towel for each family, and that's what we do now. So by courtesy of Trish and I, actually, it's been wonderful. And we still have a few more to go on with. It's been great.
Do you want to just guide us through, Linda, and maybe we can spend a few minutes practicing together?
Yes, I can't see anybody else on my screen. Now I can. Thank you. That's lovely. So a towel nicely shaken and folded with the air in it, and it's pointing away from your working hand, whichever that happens to be, whether it was the left or the right handed. So you need a nice, soft, gentle hand, and it's easier to keep a soft, gentle hand if you're actually using the upper part of your arm here as the equipment which you're calibrating the pressure, or the gentle movement. So you're floating, and then you start gradually to move your hand inwards. And if you've got one hand down as a platform and the other one on top of it, then the hand that's forming the platform underneath also needs to be gentle. Don't have a stiff hand there and a soft hand on top. So you can choose whether you just do it simply with one gentle hand, or whether you use one as a platform and the other one on top. So from no pressure, we go down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. Down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. So that you're getting a nice rhythm and you're embedding this rhythm, and you can do the rhythm no matter what else is happening around you. It's as automatic as driving a car. Right? At first, when you get to the wheel and you have to look at the mirror and use the brake and the gears, and your instructor is talking to you, and you wonder how you can possibly manage to focus on the road and do all these other things at the same time. And then one day, it's so easy, you arrive at your destination and you don't know how you got there. And you remember what you heard on the radio. But this is the back part of the brain, the cerebellum. Everything has been taken on board. And this is the part of the brain that integrates your breathing pattern with your movement, your emotions, and all the other interconnected functions which breathing supports. So gradually it will be very easy to do. So check that you're not putting any immediate pressure on it, that you really, you can feel a very slow, gradual contact. And what's quite nice too is that just after you paused for count of 3, instead of going straight down, just hesitate a little bit, almost move your hand a fraction up, like this sort of rotational piston-like movement, like this sort of movement. So, and that stops you from simply dropping down into the space between the floating ribs too quickly. And it also becomes quite nicely rhythmic. So just try that. No pressure. Down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. And it's like up and down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, 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 and up and down. 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's continuous physical practice that produces this soft automatic movement. And if you have this idea that you're working on water all the time, it's fluid and you're creating a wave, that you're not coming down hard on muscular tissues, then you begin to understand how this pressure can have repercussions quite deeply into your body. So you're not at the gym trying to build up a bicep and a very sort of tough vision of muscular strength. No, you're thinking about water, fluids, shifting gently, because that's actually the reality of what's happening and why it's working. So
Stephanie and David, do you guys have kind of questions on technique and kind of fine tuning from before?
I do. So I talked last time about how, before I was going down fast and then or going down slowly, but then I'd come up too fast. And when I really slowed down, the 4, 5, 6 is when something happened on the inside and everything kind of just opened and started breathing in a dynamic way. That happens every time. And so what happens is that happens the first time. And so my breath starts to align with this. Is that is that something that I should, I mean, because I like it, but I don't know if I'm just doing it because I like it or if that's really what I should be doing. So in terms of the rhythm of my breath starts to go with it. So 4, 5, 6 is like the breathing in. And the other thing I want to report with in addition to the question, I've had years of breath work where they say breathe down into your belly, and we ended up kind of pushing out our bellies. And what I'm feeling here is very different than that kind of breath work we did. It's like I'm feeling it go down into the inside and go out from that. Like I'm allowing this expansion in multi directions inside. And it's kind of like, who knew that space was there? So that's interesting, but I do have a question about the rhythm of my breath going with it, if that's okay.
You're allowing your diaphragm to do what it is now capable of doing. So you needn't worry about that. It may change. What you're allowing it to do, of course, is to move further down to allow more space, to connect better with the pelvic floor, to move down, which then allows your lung expansion to increase. So there's more oxygen coming into your body. The difficulty with encouraging people to belly breathe without explaining actually what is happening, people are trying to find some way to make their abdomens go in and out so it will look as if they're belly breathing like everybody else. But in fact, they're using the superficial abdominal muscles to do this. So this is another little stress that's taking place, but it's not, in fact, allowing the appropriate expansion downwards of the diaphragm. And if more was understood, and it's there to be explained, it's fairly clear once you begin to follow how the mechanics of breathing works, then you can see the connection between the mechanics of a nice, happy sort of relaxed breath that is coming to you, not because you're straining to make a breath, but it's just you're happy to be alive, breath, if you like, why you feel good because of that, and why children feel good initially because of that, before wear and tear of life begins to affect their breathing pattern, and their emotional breathing kicks in, and they copy people around them who are also now stress emotional breathers. So they don't have a good model around them. And it's the unconscious model really that you're taking in, because a group of individuals in one room will fall into breath. And either it's going to be fall into breath, which is good breath, or fall into breath that it reflects the common stress of the group. So my answer to your question is just relax, enjoy it, let it happen. You're giving your diaphragm the freedom to work on your behalf and optimize your needs.
I have one more question. You said something last time I'd never heard. You said that when we breathe through the nose, it goes for diaphragmatic breathing. When we breathe through the mouth,
yes,
thoracic. So could
you can feel it. You can feel, well, when you're breathing through the mouth here, it's into your throat. And just try it. It's physically obvious. It's here. Mm-hmm. So, and you're also breathing through your mouth, presumably, to either to support oxygen needs which are inefficiently produced through nasal breathing alone. And then you've also got into the habit of mouth breathing. But the more you breathe through your mouth, the more the nasal pathways occlude. So it's really going to be the case that nasal breathing is the nose doesn't facilitate breathing as well as it should. So you're now forced to mouth breathe more. But if you turn that around, and the more you breathe with your mouth, the less you're using your diaphragm because you're breathing up here. And so it becomes a uncomfortable loop, which permanently, unless you change the situation round, begins to land you in a less than optimal health situation. But the breath from the diaphragm here via the nose is the midline here. You hear people talk about this is your midline. This is what helps to work the muscles at the base of the neck, so you hold your head up properly as opposed to holding it up with the superficial muscles of the neck. So it goes either this way or that way, but it doesn't naturally go at the center in the middle. So the diaphragm is responsible for your physical structure. Your breathing has such an impact on the developing musculoskeletal system and its maintenance that you can easily see, or once you understand, the effects of alternative breathing patterns to support a weaker diaphragm in the shape of your body and in the way in which you move. And then because all systems interconnect with one another, again, you get more and more embedded in this loop. But the simplest way to undo the loop is to go to the center of it, which is the diaphragm. And mostly the advice you're given is to go to one of the outer rings of the loop, as it were. So that can be helpful, but it won't give you the enough help to cure the situation. It will just be a relief, which you can easily fall back into because it's creating other stresses because the main support hasn't been addressed. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
And I have a little question, which is, it occurs to me a lot as I've been practicing, which is, when have I reached the bottom? And it's probably the wrong way to think about it. But you're going down and you don't know where the bottom is. Is the bottom the count of 6, and maybe I'm counting too fast or too slow? So I need this concept.
If it starts to be uncomfortable, you have gone too far.
Okay.
When I'm working with families and children, and they say the same question, your child will be enjoying it. If your child suddenly stops enjoying it, then you're too heavy, too far. It's meant to still feel like a caress all the way through, a gentle, slow, gentle caress with depth to it. So the more you put your mind on the sensations that you're receiving, the easier it will be. And to do that really well, you don't have to be too caught up in counting. Instead, just think of it like this sort of very gentle wave of a movement, and try gently bringing your hand closer and closer and closer in. And while it still feels that there is this movement of fluid, you can kind of feel that happening. Sometimes warm, sometimes people describe it as little cool feelings as well inside. Then it's nice. And suddenly that all goes away, sort of like flat. And it feels very much, if you moved any further, it would be really uncomfortable because you're displacing the diaphragm itself. We're not displacing the diaphragm. We're not physically moving that sheath of muscle. We're trying to get inside it to help the fluid flows within the diaphragm. And that will almost immediately allow it to move differently. And of course, the more this goes on, the more you're not simply relieving the discomfort of the moment or enhancing the quality of the moment, you're actually changing the physical structure of the diaphragm to your advantage. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Linda, I just wanted to jump in to ask a couple of questions myself. And one is that it can be a little confusing when looking from the outside at where the towel is placed to understand where, because your hand, you can use either your fingers or your heel, right? And so just to clarify where the pressure is being applied is really important, regardless of whether you're using the fingers or the palm. You're pressing on the, or you're applying pressure on the soft area right underneath the bone
in this
of the
triangle.
sternum.
Yes. So that's the little xiphoid process. This is the triangle, and you're
Yes.
just below there. That's where the center, the epicenter of the very, very, very gentle pressure is.
Yeah.
And the rest can devolve outside and around it. That's okay.
Perfect. And fingers tend to be lighter than the palm. Is that right? The heel of the palm?
Well, it really does depend on the amount of control.
Okay.
Some people have more control over their palm than their fingers. Some people
Okay.
prefer it. They feel that they have more control and they can get a lighter
Okay.
quality of pressure.
Okay. And then to Stephanie's point, like when I remember practicing this the first time and feeling like my diaphragm was very reactive, and it was really interesting because it gave me such instant feedback. If I went too hard, I would feel like the diaphragm almost fighting my hand, and it was a kind of like an emotional feeling also of like, I don't know, like feeling somewhat threatened, and to use the shoulder. I think what I came to understand was like that the shoulder, like really the contact, the sequence of contact, right? The shoulder is connected to the palm, which is connected to the hand underneath, which is connected to the diaphragm. So in a way, you're bringing your shoulder in contact with your diaphragm. And just,
That's a lovely way of putting it. Yes.
so, and just having that understanding in my head, like, and really realizing your shoulder is touching your diaphragm and moving, that automatically slowed and kind of calibrated the amount of pressure in an interesting way.
Because I, first of all, I was instinctively searching for how to produce this pressure. And then I knew I was producing it in a way which I felt was correct as far as I had estimated. And then I had to say, how am I doing this? What's happening? And I knew straight away that if I bent my fingers or my wrist or my elbow, I couldn't make the pressure that I had concluded to be the one I'd been searching for. So then I began to think what was actually going on in the shoulder. And suddenly, of course, it became a pictorial image of what was happening and how it was happening, as if it was a little piece of engineering. And then it was easier to explain. So shall we do the next one?
Yeah, shall we? I'm going to just put up a couple of quick slides to share the positioning for everyone else who's joining in. So just a quick reminder here, this is the position for the front double ribs exercise. So when you're performing it on yourself, your arms are to the side, and your towel, you have your long fold this time. So this is where you've got the kind of a flat fold going on, and it's not quite as squishy. And you're on the lower part of your ribs here, and your arms kind of feel like they're flapping out to the side a little bit when you're doing this exercise. If you are doing it on somebody else, anyone who does it on their children, or if you're doing it on a partner, there's also a diagram here that will show you basically you're sitting off to one side and kind of reaching over, and your arms are kind of almost parallel as you're pressing down. And just to quickly review the steps for this exercise, once again, we're placing our fingers or our palms. And when you place your fingers, it's actually on this exercise, the previous exercise, you tend to use more of this part that's just at the base of your fingers to actually control the movement if it's comfortable. This one, because of the positioning, you tend to use actually a little bit more of the kind of the whole tops of your fingers really as you press down. Again, it's a gentle and even pressure, this time coming from both of your shoulders. And it's the same count as our previous exercise, 6 down, 6 up, and a 3 count pause. Over to you, Linda and team.
Right. So now you're working with both shoulders, and both shoulders are going to have a little pain, but it's a good sign. So if you're bringing them back, so your shoulder blades begin to come back together. So your shoulder blades are coming forward, and then they're beginning to meet a little bit. So it's this gentle movement that you're aiming to get, so that it's not like this. So stand up. I can't see anybody. It would be nice if any if we could connect. That would be lovely. So here we are, and you're perched nicely on the rib cage. So you're not in the soft bit in the middle, and you're not slipping off the sides. But you can, if you like, if it's uncomfortable for you, to bend your arms back the little distance that is required, then you can gently allow your fingers to meet here, but the pressure will now have moved to the heel of your hand here. So there's still no pressure coming in the center, but your fingers are just up. And that can actually be a very nice, gentle way of doing it on oneself. So exactly the same count, starting from no pressure at all, and then gradually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, pause, pause, pause. And you can make that little upward rotational movement again before going down. So the lifting off just gives all those tiny little blood vessels the chance to fully open up again. And that's why it has such a nice, light, fluid feeling of movement of water within you. So starting again, no pressure. And I've chosen to have my hands linked, but you can also do it like this. Down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. And down, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. And down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. If you'd like to just practice a little bit without my counting and see if you can comfortably get that rhythm with the counting in your own head. Counting out loud when you're doing it onto yourself is a little disconcerting, because if you're counting out loud, you're moving your diaphragm to support your speech. So counting in your head is actually a much softer, gentler experience than having to battle with the diaphragm, also supporting speech while you work.
I confess to really liking it when you're counting.
And can you keep the count in your head? I can do it again.
No,
Okay.
I can, but I just really like it. I like following your count. That's all. I'm just confessing that.
Okay, I'll just do it once more and then see if you can take off a bit without it. Down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. And up and down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. The breath itself becomes as reassuring as the count once you've embedded it.
And also when we do it to ourselves in our head, we can hear your voice. So
Yes,
we can
yes,
your
yes, yes, yes. That's how it goes, yes.
That's what I do. I've got it down. I have a question. I'm assuming that a lengthened spine, whatever position you're in, I'm assuming this is not something you can ever do curled up, or I'm assuming you always want the integrity of the spine from the pelvis to the head to be as lengthened as possible. Is that?
Ideally, yes. But if you are in some sort of pain and you're all curled up, then just do it in your curled up position and gradually you will uncurl. Because it has because it's improving your circulation and the tissue oxygenation, then it's really good for pain relief in that way. So it's very adaptable. This is the beauty of it. Right. I take you again, so that I'll do it just a few more times then to help this embedding business. And you can put your fingers like this and say use the heel. That's quite a nice position. I found if you're in a chair that you can't get your hand, your elbows back sufficiently well. Okay. So gently float. And another thing that I haven't mentioned is it's quite nice just to leave your hand on top of your diaphragm and feel your own breath. Get to know this wonderful organ that lives within you and is your bringer of life in so many ways, so that you get to sort of know it. And then gradually, what the sensory information that your hand picked up will blend with the sensory information that you're getting as you work on yourself. So you begin to understand more of that interconnectedness. Okay, so we'll go for it. Down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. And down, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. Up and down, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pull, pull, pull. Okay. So, Trishna, shall I move to the next new exercise, or do we have any other questions?
Yeah, if you guys have any more questions, we can take those. Otherwise, we can move on. The next exercise is working on the same area, so it'll be quick, straightforward. Stephanie, I think you have a question.
Mine was I do this lying in bed at night before I go to sleep, and I think the next one we do is the one I do, and it knocks me out. But I can't put my elbows back when I'm lying in the bed. So my elbows are out here. And when I'm lying in the bed, this lifting of the shoulders is a little more difficult. And so I started playing with, and I got to where I was kind of making a like a loose fist here on each thing and trying to make sure I wasn't doing this. And I started to do that. And I'm still trying to find that to do it.
Definitely. It's such a small movement that in the bed you haven't got to bring your arms down. It's a very tiny movement. So you just, a slight pressure into the mattress is all you need.
With that.
It really is. Mm-hmm. And to just feel that gentle floating movement. I understand what you're saying, and it's come up before, and I've sort of demonstrated that you haven't got to be doing this. Right. At all. Mm-hmm. And the relaxed position that you were in when you're horizontal in the bed, or even when you're propped up on pillars in the bed, just allows that softness to take place. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, you don't have anything you can lie horizontal on to try now?
Not
really. That's all right. But
production.
truly, just take it very, very gently. Mm-hmm. It's such a small movement of the elbows. Just push down slightly into the mattress in a soft way. Mm-hmm. Now, the next one that we are doing is an alternating movement. So it's a little bit different. As one hand, both hands start from no pressure, one gently descends to the same count as 6, although this one it's easier not to count. They sort of modify each other. So when this one gets to the bottom of the descent and begins to come up again, the other hand comes down. So they pass gently in the middle. And the difficulty with this one, again, of course, is the coming up too fast. So there isn't a pause for a count of 3 at the top. There's no need, because we're shunting blood from one side of the other,
20 hours.
Of the diaphragm to the other, so that we get that little break happening very, very naturally. But you want to have a little hesitation to prevent the speed suddenly increasing, so that you find yourself becoming agitated without really quite knowing it. And as you go up and down on one, you're forced to go up and down more quickly on the other until you're coming back. This isn't quite what I was intending. So as you get to the top, you just hesitate, and you also hesitate to make sure that you've synchronized nicely with the hand that's on the bottom. So if we were doing this in an exaggerated way, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hesitate, and then again, change down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hesitate here. So this is hesitating just while this is finishing. So I suppose you could almost think down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you're pausing here, and this is kind of 7 down there, just to give you that little modifier. And it doesn't have to be absolutely mathematically precise. No breath is. And nothing in the whole of nature is absolutely mathematically precise. Everything is approximate, even a honeycomb. So don't worry, oh, have I counted just far enough here? No, it's just to get that lovely, soft, relaxed feeling that makes you feel good. So your brain is not thinking, how much faster can this go? Or what on earth is happening? What's going to be the next movement that is made, because it's also slow. It's just a very nice movement, which is very natural to the body. So with this one, of course, you can't really link your fingers. You need to have the part of your hand that you're working on. But you can slightly bend your fingers down so that you can compress the position of your elbows a little bit if you don't want them. It's going to be a bit uncomfortable. You try to stick them too far out. And again, you're perched very nicely on the rib cage. You're not slipping off the sides or falling into the middle. Where the pressure is just in the middle of each side of the rib cage. And rib cages are very different. So here we go. Down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a bit. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A little hesitation. Down, 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to say 7 or 6.5. I'm just going to count to 6 and that little hesitation. But you can feel it. So as you're making the gentle movements, that's something that will come into the pattern of them and help the comfort and smoothness of the movement. So here we go again. Down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hesitate. Down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And as you go, you can feel a wave from one side to the other. And this really also corresponds to the infant when lying on his tummy on whatever surface and shifting from one side to the other in the very early rocking movements. So many little rhythmical coordinated movements in the first weeks of life have been recorded. And they're not movements that even a loving parent would necessarily be able to notice, but by training video cameras on the infants, they can see how they discover the movement and repeat the movement, and then begin to modify and change the movement and develop a new movement as they're exploring the capabilities of their own bodies and using the little joints like little springs. So you have a nice little bouncing movement, which corresponds to the sensations you were getting with the fluid and the movements of your mother as she breathed in relation to her movement and as she physically moved and turned and twisted. So the infant's rediscovering this in another way and enjoying it. And all the movements that the infant is making are helping to develop its infrastructure of blood vessels. Nothing works without the infrastructure of blood vessels. Blood vessels are even more neglected than the diaphragm, but the diaphragm is responsible for the growth of these blood vessels. Even setting up the whole situation before your birth, the diaphragm alongside the other movements that are out coming into the infant's body from the outside, by virtue of the fact that it's already in a living, breathing, moving body. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of very beautiful material written about blood vessels, but most people wouldn't even know what a capillary was. Even though they've cut their finger and it's bled, they somehow have heard about arteries, but that's about the end of it. As for hearing about the diaphragm or seeing any connection between the two, nowhere near. But this is what we are establishing. And the movement of the blood through the blood vessel helps it to spin, helps to strengthen the blood vessel wall, helps it to divide, helps it to serve the cell more efficiently, so the cells divide, and then whatever tissues they happen to be, belonging to whatever organ it happens to be, they will grow and support that organ growth accordingly. So,
any questions, Stephanie and David, or comments or reflections? Go for it.
So this particular exercise, this is the one I talked about doing before bed. For some reason, this knocks me out. The other ones don't, like this one. This one just knocks me out, like, less melatonin now, kind of knocking me out. The other one, when we do just this, I get some, and maybe I'm doing what Trishna was talking about. Maybe I'm doing it too hard, but I get a little emotional vulnerability. I'm good with that. It's being present. I like it, but I don't get the emotional vulnerability here. I do kind of the 4, 5, 6. There's this, like, oh, I'm wide open and vulnerable. Why are these different things? Am I just sleep deprived and need to process emotions?
Well, I think this one has a sort of rocking quality about it, hasn't it? So that associates with this, and it's a very clear rocking rhythm. So it's a reassuring rocking rhythm on top of this nice sort of deep waves of movement. So it again takes you back to infancy and me being rocked or in your mother's arms. So I think that association. And it's because it's the diaphragm that takes you down into sleep from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. So when we are tired, it's because the diaphragm has been working very hard to support its own nutritional needs so that it can help to support everyone else, and particularly the skeletal muscles and the brain. And now it's saying, hey, look, I need a bit of a rest. I can't, then besides that, I have my night duty to perform. You lot can go to sleep. I now have to support the deep internal organs and all the work that they are going to do. And I certainly can't do both. So would you mind just relaxing, taking yourself out of things for a moment? And if, of course, a little agitating thought passes through your mind, then you will tend to breathe up here. And once you start to breathe up here, you're using the upper thorax instead of the diaphragm. And this is emotional breathing here. And so you're not allowing the diaphragm to wind everything down. So, and the connections between your brain and your muscular activities are still there. So you're getting a bit jumpy because they're not appropriately supported, but you haven't put them to bed, as it were. So this nice rocking is perhaps really helping the diaphragm to do just that and to get onto the night shift. It is curious, when we go to bed, we think because we're out of it, that's it. Everything is having a rest. But no, everything isn't having a rest. The night workers are coming on board. And if you feel bad the next morning, it's because your liver hasn't had enough blood oxygen to do its job during the night. So it's gritting its teeth and trying to carry on during the day and interfere with everybody else, who now, it was their fault, of course, that the liver couldn't do its work, but they wouldn't acknowledge that. So there's a nice share, really. I think maybe we'll come back to that central one. How are you folding your towel for the central one? Mm-hmm. For this one in the middle? Mm.
Oh, in the short way, like okay,
Just,
like
just, mm-hmm. Just so that it's really airy, so that when you roll it, does it have that softness bounce? Because the way you roll your towel can make quite a difference. And if you're very gentle here, you should just try to be a little bit more gentle with or without the towel.
Linda, I have a question. Just on this subject of the night shift, I have this Aura ring that tracks your sleep, various things while you're sleeping, and it tells you when your breath slows down and when you're into a deeper rest. And what I'm expecting to see is, if I start to do this, as I will now before sleep, I'm expecting I'll go more quickly to the deep rest, and I should get the data to support that.
That would be interesting. Yes, I've never seen such a ring before, but that does look interesting. To see if what you feel, what the reality experientially is confirmed by the ring. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. If on the nights in the mornings when I wake up and I'm not rested, it really correlates to my heart rate not having gone down for a long time. Mm-hmm. So that I've seen that really clearly now through the data. So I'm kind of convinced by this thing. So I'll let you know how it goes, what I learn. That
would be great. Yes, thank you. Any other questions so far?
There is a question from one of our participants. Male, she asks, or he asks, which is preferable, frequency or length of time? Should we dedicate less time to each and do all 5 exercises in one session, or dedicate more time to each but do only 2 or 3 per session? So in other words, if one has 15 minutes twice a day, should one do all the exercises each time, doing each exercise more times but for shorter periods, or spread them out, doing say 2 the first session and 3 the second session?
If you're working with a quite sort of condensed period of time, it's nice to vary it, because when you're moving from one location to the other, you're giving that other location a break. While you when you're working on your diaphragm, you are augmenting its blood supply. So the blood has to come from somewhere. So it comes from the veins, which are your blood reservoirs. So rather like an athlete has to gradually build up its respiratory capacities so that its circulation, because remember, your diaphragm returns the deoxygenated blood from the veins back to the heart. And it picks up, if you're now upgrading your work capacities, then on what your body is going to believe is going to be a permanent basis. So the movement of blood from the veins back around the circuit to the capillaries increases. Your liver and your spleen are also blood banks. And it's quite interesting, when I see children with cerebral palsy, their veins are always more prominent, because the blood is pooling in the veins. It isn't moving around. And you also see that in adults whose respiratory circumstances could be more optimized. And that's why they may say, I never knew why I had a vein here or there that was more prominent, but that's part of the explanation. So it's nice if you are looking at allocating specific times and to work for 5 minutes, to give that area a good 5 minutes attention, and then to move on to another exercise. But if you are very relaxed and it's nice doing that exercise, and you're maybe lying in bed at night, you can just go on until you fall asleep rather than trying to rouse yourself up to move to another place. Because I certainly find, I wonder if I'm still doing it when I'm asleep sometimes. My hands are still, how long did I continue doing this for? So there's a feeling of well-being that all the positions are nice to have achieved. So at the end of a week, you want to have gone through all the positions, but you can allocate that time really according to your own circumstances.
And one very quick question, Linda. When I was first learning this exercise and doing it with my husband, it was tremendous to feel that wave, underneath my hands, and for him to also feel that kind of like a seesawing thing. And when I did it on myself, I noticed that after a few repetitions of it, my breath would feel suspended, but not in a like that kind of a way. But I wasn't jumping to the next inhalation. Could you? Why is that?
Well, the simple thing is that you have enough oxygen. So it doesn't have to be. And now need the next input of oxygen to sustain everything at the level at which it was previously sustained. You are just finding this nice, even, gentle flow of nutritional well-being via the intake of oxygen and the distribution of oxygen within your body, because the diaphragm is doing both things. It's very important and has a direct, it's connected to the heart. It has a direct effect on heart rate, as we've just heard. So that would be why.
Okay, wonderful. We have some reflections, but I think we'll wait to add those in when we bring everyone on to share. Go on to the next exercise now.
Yeah, we can go on, and I'll just put up a few slides, Linda, while you're explaining it.
So we're going now to the side of the diaphragm, and this is quite a rich area to work on, because the diaphragm, when you breathe, should be expanding down the sides and lowering, so that you are leaving that extra space for the lungs to expand above it. So the diaphragm is slightly lower on the back than the front. So you can turn your towel here. It's I think, easier to work on your side with a towel if you are sitting or lying on your back. If you lie on your side in bed, you can actually reach around quite nicely without the towel, but the extra height of the towel makes it easier. So you can work either with the hand on the same side of the diaphragm that you've chosen to work with, or you can just gently put your hand round and support maybe with your other arm. I don't know whether you can see, because I can't see a picture of myself at the moment, but this is quite nice with that little gentle support. And you're trying to center the pressure in the middle, like the seam of your cardigan, as it were, here. So you're now reaching this the lower behind the knuckles, I think is the best way to describe it, at the bottom of the fingers. So that's where the center of the pressure is. If you just work with your fingers, you're going to bend your fingers. So And if you try to work with the palm of your hand, you're going to put some strain here, and you want to feel really, really nice and comfortable. So I'm kind of sitting here, and I'm just gently supporting this arm here. That's actually a very nice feeling. And if I were lying down in bed, I think I could do that too, quite nicely. Or in bed, when you're turned on your side, then you can do this. And that's a pleasant sensation as well. So just recap here. The towel facing it's diagonally, so it's going lower towards the back. Your hand, so that this part behind the knuckles is just in the center of the side. Your other hand supporting here, and gentle pressure. So I'll take my supporting hand away so that you can see my hand. Right, so no pressure. And down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause. And down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. So here. So if I try to strain here in this twist, this is not very nice. So it wants to be, there are going to be slight variations because people's fingers, their hands are smaller or larger. So you're, of course, that also can relate to the size of your body, but not always. So the length of your arm will modify here. Yeah. It's just floating there. Down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. Down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. Down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. Now, you can wrap your hand gently around without the towel. And if you do this, then it's a kind of duality because your hand still has to be soft, but you can fix it in this slightly curved position so that you're pulling like that against the side. So here, so I'm pulling this way. And it's very gentle pressure inwards. Okay, so I count. Down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. If I can support it here, it's again much easier. Down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause, pause, pause. So how did you get on? I haven't got a picture, so I
I have a question. This one for me is a little bit more of a challenge because of the reach around. And so, and because sometimes I feel like I'm pulling and not doing that shoulder shading thing.
If it feels uncomfortable, then don't do it. Don't do the, and gradually, because you've been working on the others, it will be easier to do. And when I say that, you may just try it a little bit, but don't wrestle with it, because
Right.
it's better to embed very nicely this rhythm. So then you haven't got to think about the rhythm. How do I get the best position? And if you support your hand like this, so my arm is doing this. Actually, it's no strain at all. It's not that I'm having to reach around my body.
Or
So
is the
like this
hand
hooked.
guiding
Sorry?
it? Is the top
No,
hand like
no. The other hand is just supporting. The other hand is just,
holding it
it's
up?
just,
Oh,
it's not doing anything. It's just happily supporting the arm.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and the arm is, you are actually using the curve of your fingers now. So they've become a little unit. It's gently coming in and out. After a bit, it begins to feel really quite nice, and it should feel nice. If it doesn't feel nice, then there's something needs to be adjusted to produce this really pleasant feeling, because the pleasant feeling is that redistribution of fluid that you're creating. And this is what I was sort of focused on, finding a way inside the body, and what the body needs wherever there is a problem is better nutrition, which is carried in the blood and won't work unless there's the presence of oxygen there. So here is a very gentle way of assisting the body to provide those extra essential transport of nutrition, but at the same time to grow and augment the thoroughfares through which it is delivered. That is the capillaries, which will, if capillaries are underused, they collapse because their walls are so weak, they're only held out by the fluid going through them. Well, we have capillaries which are motorways, and which are A roads, and which are B roads, and which are little country lanes, and which are relatively no more than public footpaths. And it depends what you're doing, which is why when you go horse riding and you've not been for a year, it aches. It doesn't ache at the time. You don't think about it. You think, gosh, I haven't been horse riding for a year and I can do it perfectly, because your brain remembers. But the capillary now is bruised because it's got all that blood supply shooting to it. So next morning, the capillary is like, oh goodness, couldn't we have gone it a little bit more slowly and cautiously? Oh no, the brain again wants to show off. So then you ache a little bit, and of course it's the ache up here is the same principle. You have those capillaries, you can make that movement, but your blood vessels haven't been used to you doing it very often, so they're in a state of semi-collapse. So when you are improving your respiratory capacities via the diaphragm and its effect on circulation, you are reintroducing blood supply both into capillaries that perhaps you didn't use prior to childhood, because that's when you were doing all these very active things, but you also have the capacity for augmenting the growth of the existing capillaries, which is just what you're doing when you're pumping ions. But we're getting deep into the body here, so they are very, very delicate structures. And our aim is to transform the status of an organ the diaphragm, because the diaphragm will do so much for us as long as we look after it well.
Mm. Am I
Can I
right that this one feels a little different from the others because more of the diaphragm is behind the rib cage?
Yes, I think you may feel the need to go a little bit longer on the sort of movements. They go to count more 7.5. So keep going slowly, 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 and you should feel that sense of shifting fluid, and it won't necessarily happen straight away, because when the signal that goes to your brain is, this is a rather stiff bone. The other bone was not quite so stiff. This is rather stiff. So I have to push harder against stiff bone. But that's sorry, wrong message. I would, if you can go on, but slower, slower, slower,
Okay.
slower, slower, to get that softness until you've got it. Mm-hmm.
And is it okay to just do it under the arm? I think it showed that this
This is here. Yes, this is also a
that's
possibility.
easier for me.
And again, you can support this arm if you need to. So that it's that there's a certain point where your elbow will work quite nicely. Other points it doesn't work so well. So this then becomes a little bit like this one, where we was putting one hand on top of the other. When you know what you're trying to create, because you've already had that sensation, then it is possible to create that in other positions around the diaphragm. And you have to be a bit ingenious in relation to your own body and the way you sleep, and gradually you find a way in which you are producing that. It's nice, I got it. The feeling of being nice, which is so good. It's absolutely the opposite of no pain, no gain. If you would never tell that to a baby. If you don't do your morning exercises, you'll never grow up.
Thank you, Linda, for this demonstration. And thank you, Stephanie and David, for being with us on screen. We're running just a few minutes over with the workshop, but we didn't want to cut this important interaction short. We have just a set of tips to share before we wrap up. Some final things to keep in mind as you embark on your LST journey. So how and when to practice LST? Linda suggests at least 30 minutes daily. And as she mentioned, this can be together in one go or broken up into shorter sessions as it suits you. Personally, I found it really helpful to start my day with 10 minutes of LST, find 10 minutes somewhere along the day, if maybe 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and then to end my day with 10 minutes of LST before I sleep. So you just kind of come up with a pattern that works for you. As we had heard earlier, we recommend alternating the exercises so that you do ultimately rotate through all the exercises on a regular basis. One thing to keep in mind when you're doing these side rib exercises is to do equal time on both ribs. Otherwise, you're going to have a lopsided diaphragm. So that's a good one to keep in mind. And like any new exercise you're embracing, just setting up a routine makes it much more likely that you're going to be able to integrate this into your daily life. It's suitable to practice any time of the day, even within 5 minutes of having food. It's a gentle caress. It's quite a soft touch, so nothing that's going to kind of disrupt the system. And the big question everybody's wondering, we talked a little bit about this last time as well, and I wanted to remind people who are kind of ending the workshop series, within the first week or two, you'll notice this positive effect on your sleep. That happens quite quickly. For me personally, I noticed I was able to go into a deeper sleep for longer periods of time. It is different for each person, but sleep is definitely one of the amazing benefits of doing LST, that you feel quite quickly. Within 3 to 6 months, most people will experience a change in their posture. And one way to know that is to take before and after pictures. So today, if you want to just kind of get into a swimsuit or some kind of tight-fitted attire, that you can take a picture and see your posture from all the angles, and then kind of compare it in 3 months' time and 6 months' time. Hopefully, with that daily practice, you'll see a change. And in 1 year's time, this is the amazing news. I had asked Linda, I learned this with my kids and my husband and all of us trying to do it at the same time. And I was like, how long am I going to be doing this for? And she said, the truth is, after a year of daily practice, the diaphragm becomes almost irreversible in its strength, which is quite remarkable. So you'll see the benefits, quite quickly. Initially, but the journey of a year will kind of transform it for a lifetime. For those of you who would like any more questions, or to do a private consultation with Linda, the benefit I found personally is Linda has this amazing capacity to listen to what you share about your own health journey, and then to actually explain to you in your own context with all of your conditions how LST is going to impact those in the long run. So it's often, if you are working with various health conditions, I personally found it immensely helpful to have that personalized kind of chat with Linda, to understand how this is going to benefit my own health. And all of her details are here. You'll find them on the website. Obviously, our invites and everything have the links as well. So you'll be able to follow up with her, or for more LST training if you want to. We wanted to wrap up. Linda, I wanted to offer some time to you to share a little bit of a personal story from your end. And then we're going to have our participants, those of you who feel comfortable, come on screen with us and share your thoughts with Linda. A couple of sentences with her would be beautiful for her to hear your feedback from this workshop journey. So with that, over to you, Linda.
Thank you. I wanted to talk about Doran, particularly. I didn't know those pieces were going to be read out from my book, but it's very interesting because in the beginning, I was looking at the relationship between movement and breathing. But as time went on, I could see that this was insufficient to really change Doran in the direction that would support him as a mature adult. But I had already started at the university, and I had now read the papers that showed me that breathing was connected with sleep, digestion, speech, mood, physical structure, general health. The list went on. And I could see that Doran had difficulty chewing and swallowing. He had difficulty coordinating his movements. He had difficulty with his posture. He was deaf, but I didn't feel that the problem he had with speech was directly related to his deafness, but related to both the other parts of the brain that are necessary to promote the interactions that land you with speech, but the respiratory mechanics was vital to speech, which he did not have. I was also aware of his mood, that he would become very anxious at times, and that there were changes that were occurring in him as extra height and weight began to frustrate the respiratory capacities that he had previously achieved. So when I woke up one morning and thought, it's pressure, it's so simple, it's pressure. And I could see inside the body and these continuous movements that were taking place and devolving from the diaphragm through the blood vessels and over the tissues. I began to realize I could treat the situation very differently. And slowly I began to see over the first 3 months of these applications changes in almost every area, so that he became calmer, more thoughtful, more back to his more cheerful self in his early youth. He began to listen more. He was more attentive to the hearing that he had. His digestion was improving to such a degree that it seemed remarkable by almost any standard. And then as time went by the end of a year, his physical shape had changed. His posture was so much better. His articulation was so much better. The quality of sleep was now such that he was able to go through the night and wake refreshed. And what I was looking at was all these systems are supporting each other. The diaphragm is supporting all of the systems, and as the systems begin to give the interrelated support that is necessary to provide for all the developmental processes that are now in Doran occurring very late in life. He was 24 when I began. So to see him grow, to see his shoulders move back, to see he had gained postural stability, to see that he was now much calmer, to see that he was digesting his food so much better, that he was very healthy. He didn't seem to get colds as he had done previously. All of these things were showing me that if a young adult with cerebral palsy, who according to the literature should be deteriorating steadily, and in Doran's case, was he was so badly brain injured, the statistics showed that deterioration would set in after 3 years. Then if things are a little milder, then it's after between 5 or 7. And because, as I would now understand it, of the mismatch between physical growth and diaphragm capacity, by the time you begin to reach puberty, then the situation begins to take a downward spiral. And people with cerebral palsy who are age prematurely, according to the literature, they have many organic diseases, their teeth are not so good, simply because they can't cleanse their mouths properly, and of course they can't swallow the saliva properly, so the saliva is running out. So this was another thing that I noticed, that this wasn't happening. Doran was really pleased about this, that he wasn't dribbling saliva. The saliva was going down the esophagus to protect it and help digest the food. So everything began to gradually, as if you were getting a pair of binoculars into focus, Doran's bodily systems began to come increasingly into focus. And so did this improvement in his quality of life meant there was an improvement in everything that he was doing. His desire to be helpful was no longer frustrated, because when he would try to coordinate his movement to do a simple activity like make a sandwich, if you like, his breath would be going and he would be having to stiffen his body to support stability. And this in itself would be very stressful, because he didn't have the flow of breath or the diaphragmatic support posturally. So suddenly I noticed him doing things, but I also noticed that he's standing in sort of rather nice, sort of laid back position. He can sit down and cross his leg. He's doing things like this. And I think, gosh, that looks such a natural movement, because it is a much more natural movement than having to use the outer coating of your muscle. So a person with cerebral palsy is in a much more exaggerated condition, and obviously they have a brain injury as well to contend with. But when you look through the huge multifactorial role of the diaphragm for all of us, and how a little degradation can have a reduced effect that produces a downward cascade in quality of life, which you perhaps just accommodate, or you think, well, because I had this, or because I'm getting older, or you've forgotten what life could be like. And the joy of having a healthy body, which is supported by a healthy circulation, which is the means by which the tissue oxygenation resonates the vitality and allows you to take into all your senses what is happening in the natural world. It's just such a free, beautiful, pleasurable activity. Your food tastes nice, everything is better. So by focusing on this beautiful forgotten organ, you are moving your body into a new dimension of health and happiness. And this is really exactly what happened to Doran. He suddenly became really happy. And this was a natural, it's natural inheritance, which I had hoped for him. That's what I wanted. I wanted a joy in life itself. And he also, from this, was able to radiate to others, which he does at a really quite a high level, because he knows that pleasure himself, and he wants to extend it to other people. So that's as far as I really feel we have time for me to go. It's a long story, and it's been many adventures. But I feel now there is an area of understanding about the importance of being able to understand one's own body and how to restore it. That gives me anyway a new excitement, that I'm not just dependent on the information that I can treat this symptom or that symptom. I can try treating the way I would be naturally intended to develop my own health, energy, and capacity for life through the breath, and more specifically through the diaphragm. So I wish you every success and pleasure in it. I'm very happy to answer any more questions.
Thank you, Linda. We thought it would be nice to hear from the folks who have been participating, and we still have some of them on with us now. So whoever feels comfortable, if you want to switch on your screens and just unmute yourself to share maybe a sentence or two on your experience, that would be wonderful.
I can kick off just to say I'm really overwhelmed with gratitude and a sense of I just is connected to something very deep in me. I'm going to do this, and I can't wait to bring the story back to you, Linda. Thank you so much for this.
Oh, thank you. It's been lovely to have met you. I look forward to meeting you again. Enjoy.
See, Deb is unmuted. Did you want to share something, Deb?
Linda, I got onto this program through Stephanie, and I am inspired. I didn't really know what I was going to learn, but I'm a longtime meditator, and I feel that this technique is so compatible with what I already know, that I feel that I can truly improve my life, even though I don't have the challenges that Doran does. I have some challenges. And I think this is a remarkable example of how human beings co-create the most amazing innovations in life. I'm truly inspired, and I hope I can be a good girl and keep up with my program. So thank you. Thank you so
It's a
much.
pleasure. That's a pleasure. You can always email me or contact me for a little bit of moral support to keep going.
Yes, I would
Lovely
really
once you
love
get
to.
into the flow of it, and it becomes part of your life. It becomes embedded in your everyday life because it's pleasurable.
Yes, it is.
Not like having to get out there and jog around the block in the pouring rain and snow.
Which I also love.
But it allows you, especially if you do it already, to take much more pleasure in it, because when you have this, then the idea of running out around the block in the rain and the snow also seems pleasurable, because
Yes.
you have that capacity. You look at it and
Yeah.
you know if you're recovering from a bad cold and you look at a flight of stairs, it looks high and long, and it takes you a while to get up there. But if you're in full health, it's rather nice. You can just fly up, and it feels rather pleasurable to go up the stairs. So,
Yeah.
and it's because your diaphragm has been looking after the oxygen needs of the white blood cells. And when you have recovered, then it doesn't have to allocate so much oxygen to another source, and you've got your vitality back again.
And I'm going to pass along these information about you to my pulmonologist, who is a rare person who is a longtime meditator and a believer in science and, you know, creativity, as you have become. And being a part of the medical establishment, she's made remarkable changes here in California with some of her colleagues who share this sort of direction. And I really think that you have something to offer to people all over the world, medical professionals, you know, and just individuals. So I plan to, you know, help boost this, because
that would be lovely.
yeah,
that is
it's
my
very
wish.
important.
Thank you, Deb. And does anybody else want to share? Feel free to unmute and jump in here. Lisa?
Hi. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I just wanted to say thank you to Linda and everybody that made this possible. I do have to concur with Deb. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I was completely shocked at what I experienced, because I have been a chronic pain patient since I had a cervical spinal fusion and multiple other things, skeletal problems, fibromyalgia, and anxiety, chronic insomnia. And I had just gone to physical therapy, which really made me very tired and sore, and I hate it, even though it's good for me. But I practiced this with you, and literally I just became so relaxed and so at ease, and the pain just kind of melted away in a way I can't even describe. And I agree. I think this should be shared with so many people all over the world. I just saw my physiatrist yesterday, who is a pain management specialist, and he's recommending acupuncture and aqua therapy. And I really want to ask him, do you know about the Linda Scotson method? Because I think it would really benefit his patients. So just thank you. This is a wonderful gift. And I feel just blessed and a lot of gratitude for being able to be a part of this.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm so happy that it's made that difference. It's such a wonderful, powerful, deep tool, and it's our prerogative really to be able to understand it and use it to support ourselves through all kinds of difficulties and stressful situations, which life, as a consequence, you go through, but not to be burdened down by them, because this life force should come bubbling up and uh, bring you optimistically towards a recovery from the stress. And the difficulty is that it's so little known. Our very anatomy is so little known. And the relationship between anatomy and the physiology of it is so little known. But we weren't left in quite so abandoned as we thought. It's within us.
It is. It is. My question is, before bedtime, do you recommend doing all of the exercises that we did today, or just specifically one for sleep?
I think that depends on the individual, because if you're wanting to wind down gently into sleep, so the exercise that you would do last would be one that was really nice and easy and comfortable, but you may find them all nice and easy and comfortable. So you can develop a pattern which suits you best, because everybody's a little bit different.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Throughout the day, you can try. I do the central diaphragm because this is the one I think I do all night, but I obviously don't, because I go to sleep so quickly, but wake up with my hand still there. But as you heard, some people very much like the one that's working with the wave, that also can be beautifully soporific. So just find your way with them and enjoy it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Linda.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else from our participants? Nita, I noticed your son was there. I didn't know if maybe you worked on him at all, or you were working on yourself. It'd be lovely to hear.
I don't think he's going to say anything, but no, he attended both. He attended Sunday as well. So he practiced on me a little, and I practiced on him on Sunday. And he's been listening to everything. And he actually, at the start, when Pavi read from the book, as soon as she finished, he said, "Oh, Mom, can we get the book?" I think he felt really inspired and really wanted to know more of Linda's story. So yeah, and I'm really grateful to learn this because I've been doing a lot of movement practices, and I'm a movement teacher and have been for years. But I have a lung condition, and something that's always been with me is the breath is the key. And in the movement practice, and
it's 21 hours.
Always thinking about, it's always about the breath, and it's fantastic to learn this, and I'm really curious to see if it helps me with my lung condition and any other changes. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
I just want to add, and I've just been interacting with you all over the place, and I'll be calling you, but I'm a meditation teacher, which is how Deb is here. In meditators, you've got this group of people who are already working on it, thinking they need to evolve. And so many of them, what I'm coming in with is, hey, you got a body, like, let's work with the whole body here. And I've helped people with posture forever, and I did not know the role that the diaphragm played in posture. So, and people ask me to come fix their posture. And so I've been slipping, have you guys seen this? I've been slipping this in all over the place. So my goal in life is to make this really cool, and so that everyone wants to do it. And we'll just, figure that out. But if I can get meditators to just have this as an integrated part of their practice, they're already sitting there for hours every day. I think we could change the world. I'm sorry. I think it's great. So thank you so much. I'm a fan. I'm fanning right now on you. So there we go.
Many hugs.
Yes, hug her.
Andy, are you unmuted to speak?
You want to wrap us up here?
So I have a question.
Oh,
I'm
Sandy,
wondering.
sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, Linda, how would you like us to help you get the word out? What would your dream be?
I want to be able to train as many people as I can and to train instructors as simply as I can, so that at least the very basics of this can be in everybody's hands. When you begin to understand, as I keep reiterating, the work of the diaphragm, and you can also understand why and how you can end up with a diaphragm which is not functioning optimally as it should. And yet there's so many compromises that your body has made and the symptoms that have evolved from these compromises. And you've been to the doctor who's treated the symptoms, who's given you a drug which had a side effect, which produced another set of symptoms. But now, of course, as your diaphragm can't remove toxins so efficiently from your body, which the doctor wouldn't realize because he didn't realize there was anything wrong with your breathing. You appeared quite robust. You can be jogging every day, but you're breathing upper-thoracically and often with your mouth open. And you haven't realized that this is undermining your health in the long run. But health goes with, and I keep reiterating this, is a joy and a pleasure in life and a feeling of your own strength, which allows you to reach out to others so much more easily. Especially if you have also recovered from something, you can put yourself in their position and reach out with something simple and positive as understanding this is the way your body was intended to work to help you to rise up. So and from point of view of practitioners, what would be lovely is if they could also work with one another. It's an odd thing, this situation that we have found ourselves in, which is a bit complicated to discuss, but it's nevertheless allowed us to use things like Zoom and social media. I've been working now all over the world. I didn't think of it before, but it's so easy. And I had to devise ways of translating what was a hands-on therapy into a therapy that could jump through space and could be understood by a qualitative explanation. And it does seem to work because I've had people who have learned this way who have then come to my center, and to my delight, it was good. They were doing the right thing. It goes right through where illnesses become, I mean, for people with chronic illnesses, what has been undermined is their respiratory circulatory system, and they're in no position to support it. For children with neurological challenges, what has been undermined to prevent a much more restorative paradigm is their respiratory capacity. These can be changed. These can be changed. And I've seen it in so many people over so many years. I've tried so hard to move it into the national health in our country, but the national health is very stuck on what is called evidence-based medicine, which also means that you can only do a statistical analysis on one aspect. And if you're saying, I know, but everything interconnects, and what I want is interconnectedness, and so, interconnectedness, that's a confounding variable. So it's I decided not to go that way anymore, not to keep banging my head against this wall. And it was rather nice because I could research more freely without having to keep justifying every step that I was making. So to be able to have platforms where I was able to teach and help and discuss and inform at every level. Premature infants, so many premature infants suffer neurological problems, that developmental delay. They when they become young adults, the weakness of their respiratory capacities begins to show up in many ways, and their aerobic activities are under par. Or if they try to push themselves, and maybe some do push themselves very successfully, but it is going to leave a payback. So it doesn't need to happen. And it's such a lovely bonding thing between a mother and baby, or a mother and child at any age. So it's the very gentleness of it, the fact that it's so cheap, and the fact that it's actually effective. To me, there are a lot of ticks around there. So to try and find ways in which I can discuss and inform and offer at different levels to different people, whether they were professionals in or out of the medical system, or whether they're just human beings who want to learn more and to utilize this knowledge for themselves and their family. But if it becomes a first resource, every doctor ought to have the computerized respiratory plasmography in their office, and look first, whatever problem the patient comes with, you look at their breathing first. Let's get the breathing right, and then we'll see how much of a residual problem there is. Or at least treat the two together if it's more acute. Do you follow?
Yeah, that's great, Linda. Thank you so much. And thank you, all of you who joined us on screen to share a few words with Linda. She always says that she loves hearing the feedback and, to hear about people's experiences. So thank you so much. Over to you, Pavi, to bring us home.
Wonderful. I think, we could talk to you all day, as it's evident, Linda, from this call, but I think we will close now and hope to continue this in our own ways. I wanted to close, Pranita-san, with a little excerpt again from the book, and then we'll go straight from there into just a moment of silence to give gratitude and to take a snapshot, an internal snapshot of everything that we have received today. Life is for learning. Whatever the apparent misadventure, it offers a new route into the depths of human love and philosophy. No action is so small or insignificant not to have a positive or a negative effect on the whole. What has happened to Doran need not be exceptional. Einstein once pointed out that he could not hope to acquire knowledge, but only to increase the boundaries of his understanding. There is a grave need, and a facility has arisen to meet it. On humanitarian grounds alone, this should not be denied. Thank you, Linda. Thank you all. We'll close with a moment of silence.